In order to interpolate the orientation of objects, you first need a representation for the orientation. So the representation that we are already used to is a triplet of angles around the various coordinate axes. That the order in, if I represent the orientation of my object by a triplet alpha, beta, gamma, where alpha gives the rotation about the x-axis, beta gives the rotation about the y-axis, and gamma gives the rotation about the z-axis, and I say that the order in which my rotations will apply to my object point P is x, y, z, then I can see that this is the order in which my rotations are going to get composed. So any ordered triplet like x, y, z, x, y, x and so on is valid, except that you cannot repeat the same axis twice consecutively, because in this case these are just two numbers and not three, because the rotations in x and x will become just one rotation in x. So this is a very convenient representation. You just need three numbers to represent the orientation of the object, and this is with respect to fixed axes. The axes themselves do not move. Such a representation is called a fixed axis representation. So the orientation of the object is changing, but the axes are global axes and they are not moving. So let us see how we can interpolate given such a representation. Well, you might think that you want to create the rotation matrices from these angles and then interpolate the terms of the rotation matrix directly. So what happens if you do that? Here is a rotation around the z-axis by 90 degrees. Here is a rotation around the z-axis by minus 90 degrees. And if you try to do a term by term, you will get this matrix where these two values have disappeared midway, right? Because this was 1 here, this was minus 1, and this was minus 1 here, and this was 1. So midway they are both 0. This matrix is not even a rotation matrix. So obviously this is not a very good idea. So you cannot interpolate directly in the space of rotation matrices. The better and the more convenient thing to do is therefore interpolate in the space of the triplet of angles themselves. So how do you do that? Well, you can just, so if your angle changes from say 0, 0, 0 to 0, 90, 0, this is orientation 1 and this is orientation 2. If you want to interpolate from 1 to 2, you can just interpolate the angle about the x-axis with the angle about the x-axis, the starting and the final. You can just do linear interpolation of those angles, and that is a valid choice because at every step you will get a triplet that will represent an orientation. So at least that much is valid. However, in this space where you are representing orientations by these triplet of angles, there exists a problem called a gimbal lock. And the problem of the gimbal lock is as follows. Suppose you start with this orientation of the object, which is 0, 0, 0, and you rotate about the y-axis by 90 degrees. Right? Now once you have done this, this arm of the object, which was earlier parallel to the x-axis, is now parallel to the z-axis. And now if you try to change the x angle or the z angle, the effect on the orientation of the object appears to be the same. So what happens because of this rotation about the y-axis is that the object essentially loses 1 DOF. 1 degree of freedom is lost. Or rather 2 degrees of freedom collapse into 1 degree. So the gimbal lock represents a sort of a singularity in this representation of orientations. You will notice this in your assignment when you are trying to use your various keys to move the parts of, say, your bike rider. Sometimes you will see that for some key combinations which were supposed to rotate about two different axes, you are getting the same change in orientation for the part of your rider. This means that you are stuck in a gimbal lock. How do you get out of the gimbal lock? Well, if two rotations are giving you the same change in orientation, then usually it is the third axis that has got you stuck in the gimbal lock. Change the third rotation slightly. You just have to change it slightly. So go from 90 to say 89.9 and you're out of the gimbal lock. By the way, this just does not happen only at y equal to 90. It can happen in various other configurations. Here is an example that shows the same example as earlier, but by performing the math instead of showing it to you diagrammatically. So here is a rotation about the x-axis, y-axis and z-axis, right? And you see that if we substitute beta is equal to pi by 2, thereby rotating by 90 degrees about the y-axis, and you figure out the composite matrix by actually multiplying these three matrices. So you multiply 1, 2 and 3, you are left with this matrix 4 where you have alpha plus gamma, and it does not matter whether you change alpha or whether you change gamma, you will get the same change in orientation of your object. The gimbal lock is usually not a problem during interpolation, but it is a problem during interactive manipulation. There is a variation of the triplet of angles that we must be aware about. Remember that we said that the object rotates and the axis stays fixed, and we called it a fixed axis representation. Well, what if your axes are bound to the object and the axis also rotate with the object? Then it is called a moving axis representation or local axes. The earlier were global axes. This also is represented as a triplet of rotations. The only difference being that if you represent an orientation by some composition of rotations, in the moving axis representation, the same orientation can be obtained using the fixed axis representation by multiplying the matrices in the opposite order. So they are just different ways of looking at the same orientation. How can you think about this? So imagine that there is an aircraft flying in the sky. If you are an observer on the ground and the aircraft is changing its orientation with respect to you on the ground, and the axis is fixed to you on the ground, and you are the one observing the aircraft, then that is a fixed axis representation. However, if you are observing the aircraft and you are inside the aircraft while the aircraft is changing its orientation, then your axis is going to change with that of the aircraft, and it is a moving axis representation. The orientation of the aircraft, however, may be the same in both the cases. It is just a different way of looking, a different coordinate frame of looking at the same orientation. The representation is still a triplet of angles. Either way of representing orientation, whether you use the moving axis or the fixed axis, if you use a triplet of angles, then it is known as an Euler angle representation. And because the gimbal lock problem is essentially a characteristic of this 3-parameter representation of the space of orientations, it does not matter whether you use the fixed axis representation or the moving axis representation, both of them suffer from the gimbal lock. So are there representations that do not suffer from the gimbal lock? Yes, there are. And we will see those in a moment. Before that, I want to highlight this small point. Suppose an object has orientation theta, and the orientation of this object has to be incremented or changed by delta theta over time, over say 10 frames or 100 frames. And the way in which you perform or you apply these orientation changes is by forming matrices and multiplying those matrices with the current state of the object. There are various ways in which you can do this operation. You can form a rotation matrix for delta theta and apply that repeatedly to the rotated object at each time instant. So what does this mean? Form R of delta theta and apply it to x to get the rotated object x prime, and then to say that x equal to x prime, and you do this repeatedly. This will rotate the object by delta theta at every frame. This is one way of doing it. Other way of performing the same operation is by computing x prime by multiplying x with a matrix R such that R is created by multiplying R with R of delta theta at each frame, and this is the operation that repeats over time. So you start with R initialized to the starting theta value and you multiply it with R of delta theta at each frame. So you are updating the rotation matrix by repeated matrix multiplication, and you apply this updated matrix to x to get the updated orientation of x. The third way of doing this is by doing the following. You get x prime by multiplying with r theta, and you update theta directly by starting from some theta value and adding delta theta to it. So here you are first updating the angle, then forming the rotation matrix with the updated angle, and then multiplying that to the current orientation of the object. Whether you do it using technique 1, 2 or 3, each one of them has their own advantage or drawback. Okay? Remember that you are limited by machine precision. So I want you to think about which one of these strategies, 1, 2, 3, is the best, which one is the second best, and which one is probably the third best. So kind of rank them by figuring out what might go wrong when you perform the same operation using these three different strategies. So mathematically, these three operations are the same. However, when you implement this stuff, they will give you different results. So I want you to figure out which one of these is the best way to implement the updation of orientation. Now let us look at a representation of orientation that does not suffer from the gimbal law. And this is a 4-parameter representation. Euler angles were a 3-parameter representation. The 4-parameter representation is called an axis angle representation. Here, an orientation of an object is given by an axis, which is a vector, and an angle of rotation about this axis. There is a theorem called Euler's theorem that says that any orientation can be derived from another. So suppose you want to go from orientation 1 to 2, you can do that by performing a single rotation about some axis. So you can always represent all orientations by using this axis angle representation. How do you interpolate between two orientations given to you as axis angle pairs? Suppose you are given A1 theta 1 and A2 theta 2, and I want you to interpolate from orientation 1 to 2. How will you do that? Well, you will first figure out an axis about which you want to rotate, which will be this axis B, which you get by the cross product of A1 cross A2. And then you will figure out an angle phi, that is the angle between the two axes A1 and A2. Now, the interpolated axis between A1 and A2 can be obtained as AK, which is rotation about the axis B by K times phi starting from A1. And what is K? K is your parameter of interpolation. So K is going to range from 0 to 1. And what is going to be the theta for the step K? Well, theta you can directly linearly interpolate between theta 1 and theta 2. So this gives you a interpolated axis and angle, and therefore an interpolated orientation between orientations A1 theta 1 and A2 theta. There is another 4 parameter representation of rotations that I am going to talk about very briefly, that is known as unit quaternions. So unit quaternions are represented by a 4 vector S, X, Y, Z. This is just a vector that has 4 components. It is a vector of unit norm. And this is just another way of writing the axis angle representation, because S here is cos theta by 2, where theta is the angle of rotation about the axis, and X, Y, Z here is sine theta by 2 times A hat, where A hat is the unit vector in the direction of the axis. So the quaternion, the unit quaternion rather, represents an orientation represented by A and theta such that cos theta by 2 forms the first component of the quaternion, and sine theta by 2 times the unit vector along the axis form the next 3 components of the quaternion. The good part about quaternion over axis angle representations is that quaternions have their own algebra that is derived as an extension of complex numbers. So complex numbers, you have seen, can be written as A plus iota B, where A can be thought of as the real part and B is the complex or imaginary part. Similarly, here you can think that S is the real part and X, Y, Z are the complex parts. So instead of just iota or I, you will have I, J, K here, and each of I, J, K are square roots of -1. So this representation actually gives unit quaternions a very interesting algebra of their own, and you have operations inside the quaternion algebra that allow you to apply quaternions to vectors to rotate them by using quaternion multiplication. We will not go there, but you should know that you can use this representation of unit quaternions to represent orientations. Another point of interest that is worth talking about while we are talking about interpolation of orientations is that sometimes you want to interpolate by equal amounts but in orientation space. So suppose you are given two vectors v1 and v2, okay, and you want to rotate from v1 to v2. Now, if I linearly interpolate from v1 to v2, linearly interpolate would I end up actually moving along this chord, right, that joins v1 and v2. This is v1, this is v2. Then this dotted line that I have just now drawn here is the chord, right? And if I perform the linear interpolation, I will actually land up on this chord. My v's will be here. So I've actually changed the length of v1 and v2. So in order to get around that, I can normalize it. So suppose v1 and v2 were of unit norm, I can normalize it, and then I will get the unit normalized vectors at these interpolating points. Okay. So I would have restored the length. However, you can see here, even if I move equal increments in k, okay, k is my parameter for interpolation. Equal increments in k guarantee that I move equal increments over the pod. So which means that this segment is equal to this segment is equal to this segment is equal to that segment in length. However, when I restore the length of my vector to a unit norm, then I find that the amount of distance that I cover on the arc is actually very different. So this is clearly not equal to that, right? So the segments that I form over the arc are not equally spaced. Therefore, in rotation space, I am not moving by equal increments by changing my parameter for interpolation by equal amounts. Okay. Therefore, direct linear interpolation is not a good idea in such a case. So what can you do? Well, you can perform something known as spherical linear interpolation, or in short it is also called SLURP. I want you to try and derive this expression. If theta is the angle between two unit vectors v1 and v2, then for any vector v that has been interpolated between v1 and v2, where alpha is the parameter for interpolation, so started from v1 and this angle is alpha theta, then v can be written as sine 1 minus alpha theta by sine theta v1 plus sine alpha theta by sine theta v2. So try and derive this. This expression for SLURP not only applies to unit vectors or the rotation of unit vectors, the same expression for SLURP also applies to unit quaternions. Therefore, once you have represented your orientations as quaternions, you can interpolate between two quaternions by using a very similar SLURP method. Just replace v1 and v2 by q1 and q2 and you will be able to interpolate the quaternions. This brings us to the end of our discussion on interpolating orientation and also to the end of our discussion of animation. So I hope by now you have enough information about performing interpolation for the purposes of keyframing, and this will help you in creating your own animations from scratch. Thank you.